What am I doing? Hang on. There we are.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure to see you here and to see you really well. I know that you have a lot of interviews today. How many interviews have you do today?
Oh, I don't know. Not so many. Maybe 10, 8 or 10.
It's such a lot of interviews, but if you can make an average of how many interviews you have been made in your music life, about thousands?
Oh, definitely thousands, no question. I don't know, you know, it's hard to say, but what's interesting, of course, is that over the years, when you do interviews, many people stay in their career as an interviewer, and sometimes they move from one publication to another, or a TV channel to another channel. But I've seen many of the same people so many times for decades now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you have seen the evolution of these journalists as the journalists have seen the evolution of your music. Yes. It's like 40 years since you start making music in this business. How do you feel about the evolution of the music scene and the important role that Duran has in this business?
Well, when we started, I think the whole business was a lot more naive than it is now. There were very big record labels that controlled the music business in many ways, but there are a lot of smaller labels too, where indie bands or young artists could go and find a home to grow. And I think people were a lot more patient. You could develop an artist over a number of years. A lot of the most famous artists in the world, people like Pink Floyd, put out several albums before they exploded and had Dark Side of the Moon. That would be hard now for an act, because what happens is that people need to have a hit with their first single or they get dropped by the label. And I think that's very sad for artists. But I do think the advent of technology in music and us being able to stream a song or download a song in a matter of seconds is a spectacular development. I actually pushed the button on the world's first download that was ever paid for. And I did this in 1997. So I think that there's some great things that have happened too.
I think that without Duran and other artists that make history, but also make a movement in the 80s, maybe this kind of technology wasn't being able, because your music and your inspiration make to such people as Steve Jobs or the people at the IBM, or the people that right now are doing this kind of implements and applications, explode their minds. If you can see the evolution of your music and the evolution of the society, what do you think about the new sounds that you are making right now in this 21st century?
Well, Duran, as a group, we always think in a contemporary way. So even though we're certainly several decades into our career and all older than we were when we started, it hasn't changed our approach to music. I'm looking for something to thrill me. I'm looking for something that's exciting. I'm looking to try to find a way in to affect people emotionally. I'm looking for a sound that nobody's heard before. I'm looking for a concept for a video that could still be interesting. I'm looking for the right color to represent the song we've got in the lighting on stage. And we think very conceptually. Pictures come into our heads as soon as we start making sound. But we don't really know what sound we're going to make when we start. Everything is handmade in Duran. We really have an art school process. It's never left us. I think people think we have armies of people around us helping us do this and find this and do that. We just don't. We do virtually all the stuff, certainly with writing and recording on our own and our collaborators, meaning a producer. In this case, we used Errol Alcan and Giorgio Moroder. But the concepts and the ideas all come from the four of us. That's the way we sort of work. And I feel it's been easier for us to fit in than many other bands, certainly from the period we started, because they got locked into a sound that blocked them into a corner. Everything started to sound the same. And people tire of that with us. I tire of that. And so with us, we wanted to be able to have the latitude to change and to develop things and to experiment. And sometimes I listen to a lot of classical music and choral music at home. I love the sounds and the harmonies. And so there's always an element of that in our music. Simon also listens to that. But then I love hearing the newest interesting electronic band that's come out of Iceland or something. That's exciting to me. And I also love listening to David Bowie, who will forever be the person that inspired me the most. So if you keep an open mind and if you keep your boundaries as wide as possible, I think it's entirely feasible for any artist to keep making music until whatever age they want, because music does remain a universal language and a fantastic way to communicate with other people around the world.
It is easy to get along with all those such influences in a band of four members that maybe has different influences in their life, and also maybe the temptation to be in the status quo. How do get along and don't get in quarrels to the path of the band?
Oh, well, we do quarrel, particularly about music, of course, all the time. That's what makes bands interesting, is the tension of the pulling one way and pulling the other way, and someone pushing an idea more and having to convince everybody else that this idea is worth working on. That's what bands are about. But what we have learned to do very well, which I think is a stumbling block for some bands, is that we keep our arguments mostly to music. We go in and we'll battle out and we'll scream at each other and, well, perhaps whisper loudly, but we do argue a lot in the studio. And then when we get out of the studio, we forget about that and we get on with our lives and do other things. And we really are friends on that basis. We've all known each other for so long. There's not a way out at that point. We are, as Nile Rodgers once said, we are family.
Also, Sister Sledge. I was thinking that in this kind of quarrels, what was the argument to make and to recreate the sounds of Anniversary?
Well, Anniversary is the first Duran Duran song, really, in 4 decades that we have been self-referentially. It is about the band, it's about the four of us together, it's about celebrating our time, and it's acknowledging what an amazing time we've really had. And in doing so, we wanted to make a pure Duran Duran song that uses elements from different times in our career, you know, the snare drum sound from that. I used the Wild Boys drum motif, but I turned it into a little sequencer. We use the bass and drum track is very much of the period of View to a Kill and songs like that. Simon's harmonies, I think, really work in the same way that they do on songs like The Reflex. So we looked back for that song very specifically, not particularly on other ones on the album, but that one absolutely.
I was asking because of that you listen to Anniversary, and it's like a nostalgic whip that you can see, well, it's been 40 years, but also it's this contemporary essence that prevails on all the bands that works in all these years, but also today.
Well, I think one of the things that our producer, Errol Alkan, said to us was, it's okay, I really think we should use these elements within the song. He said, because everybody else is using all the things you did, but they belong to you. So you need to use them and reclaim them as being part of your sound. And so we all smiled and laughed about it and said, okay, let's try this out and see where it goes. And it was quite interesting to actually be in a position where we'd be saying, well, what would we have done then? Well, I would have put a flanger on. So that would have made that sound like this. And suddenly everything comes into a different focus.
Mm-hmm. You will be about a week or two in Austin City Limits, and it is a surprise to see you there, but also I think it's the return to these festivals and live acts for Duran. How do you feel about that?
Well, when we started, we really didn't play a lot of festivals. The festivals in the UK and Europe were much more rock-based. It really was heavier rock, things like Led Zeppelin, and we didn't really fit in with that. And it's only, I think, in the 90s into the 2000s where we started playing more festivals. And we just played the Isle of Wight Festival here on Sunday. We just headlined, and we'd never ever played that before. That was fun. And Austin City Limits, I think it's an interesting bill. You know, you've got Miley Cyrus headlining one night, you've got Billie Eilish the next night, and then us on the Sunday. So it's a younger crowd, which is always interesting to any artist because it's a challenge to get your music through to them. And I also like the thing about festivals that people get to see so much music and to have the atmosphere together, and that's something that we all missed last year, and it's good to see some of it returning. Hopefully next year it'll be everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about Miley and Billie Eilish, and I think that the sounds of both artists have been very much influences of the 80s and from Duran Duran sounds. If you listen to Billie Eilish and Phineas, her brother, it's very characteristic that they are listening, or in a time listen to your songs. You are right now not also a band that are contemporary, but also that get this input to these new sounds of the 21st century.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't know with those two. I know both artists' work. I don't know whether they've really listened to our things or not, but certainly they are somewhat 80s influenced. I think a lot of music out there right now is, though. It's sort of what goes around comes around. It's like fashion. You know, sometimes you see something, you say, oh, I saw that. Well, that was from the 1970s, or that was from 1990, or whatever it is. And then you see it again, but it's been changed a little bit. Something's a bit different about it, so it makes it more modern. And I think that's what's happened with music. A lot of kids that grew up with us, or grew up on some of the bands that followed us, even people now who grew up on the Killers and Franz Ferdinand and Block Party and all those artists. There's kids now forming bands that were listening to that. So for sure, somewhere in that DNA musically, it travels down. We certainly were influenced by the DNA of disco music, Donna Summer and Giorgio Moroder, I Feel Love. Sparks, the album that Giorgio Moroder did, Number One Song in Heaven, is a fantastic record. We also loved glam rock, so David Bowie, Roxy Music, T-Rex. We loved electronic music, Kraftwerk, the Human League. So somehow those things just find their way in, and music surges forward.
I was thinking that it's also both ways, that right now, as you said to me about 5 minutes ago, you are listening to new music, and that input is also in this new era of Duran Duran. What music are you listening right now? What's in your iPhone or your Spotify playlist?
Do you know what I've got? Which I couldn't name you all the artists on there because I haven't gone into that yet, but I will. I've got Simon's playlists. Simon does a show on Sirius XM that he's been doing for quite a few months now. And for him, it's been a real revelation, because he decided that he wanted to base the show on new music and finding artists that are very young or that haven't been exposed that much yet, alongside a few things that are a little better known. But he's been on such a journey of discovery, and he's put so much time and effort into it, that it's almost as if he's curated everything for me already. So I get his playlists, and it's like getting the best of what's been around that week. And I listen to those all the time. And he finds fantastic things. Even this band Chai, that are on our song More Joy, that came from Simon's radio show. He said, I've been playing these Japanese punk band, and he said they're fantastic. So I listen to a lot of those things, but also, you know, you do find artists occasionally that rise up. I don't think any of us at this point would have doubted the rise of Billie Eilish. I think that a few of the songs on that first album were as good as anything out there. You know when somebody finds those gems and you hear them one after the other, just like Lady Gaga's first album had all those things, Paparazzi, and yeah, they're great songs. You can never stop a great song.
Never stop a great song. My time has run out, so I have to stop right now. But Nick, it was really a pleasure to speak with you, and I hope to see you maybe in Austin, maybe here in Mexico, really soon.
That would be good. We will be in Austin. We would love to be in Mexico. We've always had fun there, and we love the lifestyle and the people. So as soon as we can get there, we will.
Thank you very much for this conversation. Goodbye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.